Okay.
Warming up.
Sorry,
Ah,
we're late.
oh my God, years and years.
Oh,
That
okay.
was
Yeah.
that was such a good watch. It distracted me so much from eating faster that I haven't done Duolingo either.
Oh no. Okay.
So
We
I'll
gotta
have to
make sure we
remember to
have
do
time for
that
that. Yeah.
before time runs out.
At least get one exercise in, and you're good. Like
Mm-hmm.
you won't lose your streak.
Start on your side. There. That helps.
Yes. Give us a bit. Just going to tag things. Also, give a chance for people to tune in because it's a live stream. But if you're watching this in the future when it's just a recording, then skip over about 5 minutes, and then you should
Mm-hmm.
be good. But yeah, ooh, years and years. That deserves a that deserves an episode or something. Oof, oof.
Mm,
Yep, yep. Just tagging.
I don't see it yet. There. Now I see it. Um, oh, I see people are there already. Hey, people. Sorry, haven't noticed.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the usual sharing of
But yeah, we'll
things.
be starting very soon. Oops. Just resharing.
But yeah, so we have Mark and Mitch. Um, so Mark has tiny epic zombies in queue and doesn't have quest. Oh, I may disappoint you. No. And then Mitch is asking, yes, these are hats we made as part of a family activity on Toby's side that we all made hats. So mine is just a blue hat, but Toby's hat is a Toby hat, right? I just colored it. So
It has a fly in the fan. See, it's a happy fly. Look at that, look at that. Ooh, with the fans blowing it.
yeah, it's really
Ooh.
oh my gosh, how am I involved with this person? It's really like boom. I just added colored paper to this hat, and then Toby was like taking much more time, and then before I knew it, there was a frog. Wow, it's totally disrupting the color of the episode. So let's put this away.
Okay, frog hat won't stay now. Okay.
All right. I guess we got this started so that we can go.
All right, we'll be right back after this intro.
Oh yeah! Really right.
This is Toby.
And this is
And
Rocky.
if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random
And
live.
if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. This Monday, we talk about games and we're talking about Tiny Epic Quest.
Yes. So, Tiny Epic Quest is one of the games in the Tiny Epic line by Gamelyn Games, uh, and you can tell it's Gamelyn with a little knight figure there. It plays 1 to 4 players, and like all the Tiny Epic, they really try to live up to that name. That they offer normally very large,
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly large strategic experiences that fit into I don't know, you could call it like a postcard sized
Mhm.
box. So this particular one, who made this one? Sorry.
So Tiny Epic Quest is by Scott Ames. I'm not sure how to say that, and Gamelyn
Mm-hmm.
Games, where you are one of the, I guess, four people on the board trying to maintain control, defeat goblins, and unlock special treasures and artifacts in order to be the hero with the most points at the end of a number of rounds.
Yep. So the game uses different mechanics, including area movement, dice rolling, a modular board, a push your luck system,
Hmm.
um, and so it feels like a sort of indirect worker placement in the way, and we'll kind of explain how that is.
But the biggest thing that the game adds to the world is something they call ITEMeeples, and we will
Yes.
know more about that once we open the box.
Yeah. So why don't you get that started as we kind of go through that?
I
So
realized I did that set up a table.
you want a platform? Okay. Well, again, well, Toby inches away to set up a platform. So, um,
Too low.
to be fair, the term meeple refers specifically to a shape of game piece that was originated
Yeah.
by
Yeah,
the Carcassonne line, and then so technically every other game that has a meeple-like shape
hmm
pays some sort of license to that group.
And that's what this game brings in. Um, each player will have three meeples of their color, but notice they are not just meeples, but they are item meeples. And the reason for that, you might
I'm
want to show it.
trying to figure out which one to show. Okay, but there. So if you can see with this green one, it has two little holes on the sides and also on the other side. So they designed them to hold little items on pegs, and this being a fantasy game, it
Hmm.
includes a lot of things like swords, and basically you can take the sword and insert it into the hole so that boom, so not he is not just a meeple, but he's a meeple that's carrying a sword.
Hmm.
And since they all have two hands, they can carry two different things. So
Yes.
um so this little innovation alone was like adorable. And
Hmm.
so I think you can mark the history of Tiny Epic games as before and after Item Meeples. Because like there are games like Tiny Epic Westerns and even Tiny Epic
Mechas.
and what's the space one? Tiny Epic Space? I can't remember what it's called at the moment.
Hmm.
They don't involve item equals yet.
Yes.
So Tiny Epic Quest is the first of the Gamelyn games that introduced it, and oh my gosh, oh
Now,
my gosh.
these items come in two forms. You have the standard items, which is the sword, the rod, and the shield.
For the staff naman,
But then you can also unlock the artifacts, which come in a small, nifty board of their own. Let's see if we can make it more visible.
I don't know if it helps because the
Yeah,
inside of the board is very
yeah,
busy.
yeah, it's not focusing. It's not focusing.
Tiny Epic Galaxies. Thank you, Mark
Yeah.
and Mitch.
So this represents a lot of the special items you can unlock in the game, and each item does have its own unique power. Why all this brouhaha when you could have just had the artifacts and special items as cards? Because when your people move around in the map, the people carrying the specific item are the ones who benefit from that power.
Yeah, so they kind of made it unlike sometimes you have games where you get items and they're like magically shared across all your player characters. In this one, to kind of keep that quest feel very close to your heart, each the way that each person is able to engage with quests will depend on the items they have. So that's a cool little mechanic, and then to make it really feel like, ooh, how am I going to rearrange things? They're not strict about like was just the characters don't have to meet the swap, although technically you only meet and swap like I think at the beginning of the round. But yeah, it's pretty versatile.
Now, other things in the box include cards, and you have big cards such as these. You have your standard card deck such as these. Mhm. And then you have specialized dice, tokens, more tokens,
And more
and
markers.
more tokens.
Yeah, for little things. Okay, so ultimately it's a dice game, and the upper lid of the box is your impromptu dice tray, but and it's a little hard to see with our resolution, but it kind of tells you what happens with the results. And the every what this is during their turn, the player will roll the dice and kind of determine how the quests go, um, and resolve accordingly. But I'm getting a little ahead of things.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right, how do you want to start? We should talk about movement or the map. I don't know.
Hmm. I guess we'll start with the map.
Okay,
The map is composed of these cards, and the multiple cards represent different locations in the map. Key here first are the four main cards, which of course now I'm trying to find.
the castles.
Yeah,
Uh,
they were supposed there. They're one, two, three, four. So
okay.
key
So
here.
there are four of these that include little castles, which is where the players will start.
These act as the central portion of the board because all of them have the four player colors and the other regions. But then all the other cards, which represent a lot of different places. Oops, that was upside down. You have this golden crack here on the side. You have
Mushroom grottos.
these weird areas that have little meeple markers here on the side. Then you have these weird temple areas that seem to have steps, as you can see here on the side. So these are all specific features that are part of the map as you spread out and design the map around the board.
So
Um,
that alone already gives you a certain degree, a greater degree of replayability because although the placement of the castle cards is sort of
mhm.
fixed, that they can only be in a certain central part of the board, the rest of the cards around in the spread are completely random, which will affect how you're going to go about your quests and such. Okay.
Now, the map is important because, first of all, the map doesn't end as a square shape. With this one as the closest sample we could show right now, as you could see in the central area, the castles are placed, but then all other locations are spread out in the map, creating this almost, I guess, pinwheel sort of design. This design, wherein things are not completely square, is important because that affects how movement is done in the game.
Mark has a
Each
quick question about the card, which is how big a table will you need? I guess in fast food terms, it will not fit well on a two-person fast food table, but then on a four-person, it's just about right.
maximum height would be four cards. Maximum width would be four cards.
Yeah, but they're rectangular cards,
So
so it's longer on one side.
it's if Rocky and I can lie on your table, that's big enough. Because it's between the two of us.
I suppose this is an accurate measure. Thank you very much. All right.
Now, importance of the cards. So if you look at them real close, you'll notice there's a river that cuts the middle of every card.
Mm-hmm.
You will also notice horizontally there is a road that cuts every card. Those are two of the things you already pay attention to when it comes to movement.
Mm-hmm.
The other things you'd consider are they in the edge of the map? Are they on an outer edge?
Yes.
And lastly, um, are they diagonally related to each other?
Mm.
Because when movement cards come in, the movement card that's activated becomes the way meeples are expected to move for that round.
Yeah. So I don't have that deck. You have the card decks.
They're all there.
Okay. Sorry. They were hidden by other things. Ba-bam.
Okay, yeah.
Ba-bam.
You may begin.
All right. So there are five possible movement cards that depict different ways of travel. You may want to show the other side. It's a bit easier for them, maybe. Um, there you go. So, for example, horse movement is any other card in the horizontal row.
Mhm,
Um, the ship requires the outer edge of the total map, so you can travel to from an outer card to any other outer card.
mhm,
Raft is going up, quote unquote, by the river, so it's vertical.
mhm,
Gryphon is strictly diagonal,
mhm,
and then by foot is one space in any direction. And the thing to remember is that travel is by card and not by quadrant of the
mhm.
card, because instinctively, when you look at the card, since it's cut by a road and a river,
You're thinking
um,
it's for
yeah, at most it's two spaces. But when you're using the movement cards, one step is moving to any of the two spaces on the next
mhm.
card.
So if this one, for example, is here, and Rocky started here, this is one step, two step.
So traveling by horse, I can go unlimitedly to the end.
Mhm.
But if I were going by foot, I can only go here.
But landing here, you can choose any of these four spots to visit.
Yeah, depending on the card configuration. What you can't do is transfer from one side of a card to another. And that can get frustrating
Yeah.
depending on what you're trying to quest.
Now, given that there are five types of movement, you might be wondering why all the fuss with five types of movement. That's because when the map is set, each player has a chance to activate a card. And during that round, everyone gets to move in that manner.
Yes.
Which means, with these five available, let's say Rocky decides to activate by horse. So everyone that round
Takes
can
turn
move
moving by horse.
horizontally. And then the player after him chooses to, let's say, move by Gryphon. Then I might be wanting to go to a tile just beside mine. So I'm hoping by foot will be available. But let's say someone else uses by ship, and then by the time I could choose by foot, the place I wanted to go to either was already claimed, or worse, the person I was hoping to move was moved by some way because treasures sometimes can do that.
Yes.
So that becomes a huge element in the game.
Yeah, so you won't get to do all five types of movement in a single round.
Mhm.
So in a four-player game, you'll only do up to four, and then even in the fewer player counts, you'll do a few extra steps just to make sure it's equal. But you're never gonna do all five. So sometimes that can be controlling and like making sure that the last option doesn't get selected.
Now, each player also has their own player boards. And these player boards, as cute as the artwork is in the back, the artwork in the back is useless. What we look at is this. The front represents your track. The track is a 1 to 10 track, which is used both to track magic
And life,
and life. You
you have different tokens.
you
for
have
each.
tokens for your maximum life and you have tokens for your current life because this game has experience. By going through different things, by killing monsters, you can actually choose to level up your life or your magic depending on which track you want to do. You'll notice that each track also has a list of what we call temples with the corresponding regular items, whether it's the sword, the staff, or the shield.
Mhm.
And each player card, you will notice, lists a different set of temples. These are built in quests that you can choose to accomplish to upgrade these items.
Yeah, because you don't start with the sword, the shield, or the staff. In order to
Mhm.
get them in hand, you will need to complete the quest on your board, and you do that by completing those different temples. And
Mhm.
more on temples in a bit.
Now, with the cards, the other cards that remain break down into, well, basically these.
These are the item
And
quests,
this,
yeah, and the movement quests. So
So item quests give you an item. In this case, this one of course unlocks the boomerang. This one, for example, unlocks the bow and arrow. And then you have movement quests such as this one, wherein it shows you a certain configuration you're expected to have your meeples on the map. So quest cards are available. I think there's four,
three or four, I can't remember the
I
market
think
at
it
the
depends on
moment.
the player.
Ah,
Number.
also,
But there are quest
I think
cards
it's three.
available, and within the rounds, players have to try to hit these quests.
It's three because, and there must be at least one movement and one temple,
Yes.
but never. It cannot be all movement or all temple. Then you discard.
So, well, for example, if this quest was out, wherein the bow and arrow can be gained in the tree temple, then everyone will consider finding ways to get to that tree temple and accomplish the quest. An act which in itself is a matter of chance, depending on how good your dice rolls are. If you're the first one to get it, then you nab the artifact. And even better, if that fulfills your player board, in this case, let's say the tree quest is the second step here, and you earlier had completed the temple, then you also unlock a second reward.
So there's that helpful thing in terms of like quest cards versus quests on your board. Although I know technically you can only complete one quest card
Mm-mm.
per item per meeple turn.
Yes.
Right. So you can probably complete multiple over time.
Quest cards, but
Yeah.
this one don't count as quest cards.
But this one you can always move these
Score
forward.
it as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mitch was quickly asking, "What's the power of the staff?" To get into it very quickly, the sword helps you fight more. The shield gives you better defense against goblins, and then the staff helps you conjure more magic, depending on the energy you spend.
Now, to make more sense of that, we then have to talk about the dice.
Can we go back to like the
And
thing
you
I
can
was
use,
starting to
you can use a
explain?
card to help explain it.
Oh,
Or the inside cover.
I don't know what's clearer. Okay, but every person has a reminder that we're adventuring and it's not as clear. So let's try the box because it shades itself. But there's a quick guide to like what's going on when you roll the dice. So in an active player turn, you will roll them. They are color coded with different unique symbol faces, and I think that can still help like for readability. And then
Yellow is not readable.
on camera, probably
Yeah.
not. So and then you kind of go through also the sequence also of interpreting dice. So once the dice are rolled, then you'll check. So first you check for the red goblin dice, which means this is damage that the players take. And the damage is received one at a time based on the starting player and then going clockwise around the table.
Mhm.
So if multiple red face dice are rolled, the first player gets a damage, then the second player will get a damage, and then the third player gets a damage. And
So dice is allocated around the table. So if you have more damage rolled than the number of players, there are players who will take more than one damage. Following the take damage roll,
is energy.
energy is represented by the Triforce symbol. Oops, by the triangle symbol.
The triangle with a lightning bolt. That is not quite a Triforce, but it feels like it.
Similar to damage, energy is distributed in a circular way.
No, I think everybody doesn't everybody get. I can't remember.
I know
now.
everyone gets power in a circular pattern as well because it's possible for people not to get power. Double checking down. Just like taking damage,
Okay.
distributed clockwise, one die at a time.
All right. And then the next one is conjure magic, which is the mushroom, and or take damage. So it really depends.
Yeah, we
because
haven't gotten to that card.
we'll have to explain the magic system in a bit. And then finally, you're given there's the combination of torches, scrolls, or they're attacking goblins. Torches and scrolls are used to complete quests. This is very similar in Tiny Epic Galaxies, where to conquer planets, you would have to complete depending on symbols. So the temple tracks indicate what you need, and based on the number of dice you roll, it will determine how many steps your meeples can take.
Mhm.
Thankfully, this one is applied universally. So the number of torches, everybody gets to move that many torches, but they must choose one of their meeples to allocate the points to. So if you had two meeples on, or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
you have to choose.
You have to choose, right? Okay.
Now, that's where power comes in. Because while it's in that phase, and we skipped it earlier when we started explaining that there are night and
Oh.
day phases.
Day is movement,
Um,
night is
During the
This
night
stuff.
phase, power can be spent to either buy extra torches or scrolls for movement,
or defend
or
against
to
goblins.
buy protection against goblin attacks, which then allows you to shift the odds in your favor if you're fighting against another player in hopes of completing a temple sooner. For example, if this were the temple you both were on, and there were a roll of 3 torches, then in theory, let's say if Rocky and I were playing, we'd both be at the first step and stop there. But then if I, for example, spent extra energy to
Actually, it's
buy
like-
an extra torch, then I
Mhm.
could move. Uh,
Starts the other way around. It starts from the tree, and then moves down, because that's the
right.
torches. So-
Sorry.
so
It
with-
starts here.
Yeah. So with a roll of 3 torches, you could get to the second step.
Mhm.
So that third torch feels wasted. But if you spent 2 energy, then you could generate an extra torch and move
Mhm.
one more step.
Yeah.
So that will help push you along.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's your basic like quest resolution. So that dice roll affects all players, and this is the push your luck element, because the more damage you take, if your hit points are reduced to 0, then you kind of drop out. You're forced to rest, and you
Mhm.
know it doesn't go as well compared to if you survive and you can push your luck and gain all the rewards at the end of the turn. Magic is its own thing, and Toby's going to bring it up.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. So in terms of the rest, while adventuring, you declare it by turning the card around.
Okay.
So magic is a complicated mess.
Ah,
Magic has its own track, as you can see here, this winding road at the top, as well as its own progression, which is this number of schools in the bottom. By going to specific areas on the board, You can take actions there to progress in Magic. But bear in mind, you must start from the start. You're allowed to jump a number of steps only if certain things allow you to.
Yes.
So, like, there are sometimes instances wherein it might be stated you may learn a school of magic up to 2 levels higher, and that tends to be because magic has reached the upper level of the track. The tricky part about magic, however, is the longer you take to progress in magic during that round, the bigger the chance it reaches a point wherein all rolls for energy are now causing damage.
So you have to remember that the magic track is a single progression per round of play.
Mhm.
So player A will roll dice and maybe gets one mushroom, then the mushroom will take one step on this track. And then the second player rolls two mushrooms, so it takes two steps. And depending on where you end up in the track, that's where things start to happen. Like when you get to the middle, you can start learning one level of a spell. When you get to the third segment, you can learn
Mm-mm.
up to two levels of a spell.
Yes.
But when you get to the end, everything goes to crap.
Because when you get to the end,
It's damage.
goblin face, mushroom, or power rolls all cause damage.
Yeah, so becomes a very dangerous place to stay, and that's super push your luck. But risk. It's a question of risk and reward, and the more you risk, the greater you can get. Mitch, of course, is asking how is Toby with dice rolls in this game. It's a mixed bag as always.
Mm-mm. But
Um,
since the game is not completely luck alone, I kind of manage better.
yeah, because at least he can spend energy to
Mm-mm.
generate stuff.
Now, before we progress to the end game stuff, we have to talk about the goblins.
Okay.
Goblins are these clock um, pointer
Yeah, they're
tokens,
pointy hex tokens because they have extra things at the vertices.
and they always appear in these cracked areas in the map which have this golden light.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever one of these spots is manifested, one of these tokens appears there. And what does this mean? When a token is present on the board, generally it doesn't really do anything yet to you.
Yes.
But during movement in the day phase, if you try to traverse a spot where a goblin was present, you must pay energy, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It must be power for each goblin you crossed. And this even includes when you use the boat in the outer area. That means if there are outer goblins that you crossed over, you still have to pay for them. That's because you anger them and they don't like the fact you're traversing past
Yeah,
their
and so you
lands.
bribe them with power, but I guess that's the thing.
Or you spent more energy to avoid them.
Yeah, yeah.
However, if you choose to actually go here, so yay, green guy goes to this area, then you will have a point in time wherein you will roll the dice. Um, Sorry, when every time the dice is rolled, if you do get the green fist symbol, then you get to apply hits on the goblin, which is represented by rotating the goblin with that clock symbol. That's not really clear
Yeah, there are numbers on it from
until
starting
you
at
reach
6.
the
Yeah.
red symbol.
Yes.
And once you reach the red symbol, the goblin is defeated. The player keeps the token, and the tokens later can be cashed in for leveling up.
Yeah. So all of this, like, what's the point? What's all this? The questing, the adventuring,
Yeah.
and stuff. Um, there is a well, there it is. All right. Ultimately, this is a victory point game, and your points are determined by three factors: your level of magic at the end of the game, the number of quests you've completed, and the number of goblins you've defeated.
Mm-mm.
And then if you kind of approximate the grid, because it's like if I kill one, if I kill two, if I kill three, when it's still like orangey, you're in penalty points. So the game wants you to try to do all things. But in terms of potential points, number of quests, if you complete up to 10, you're gonna get 30 points. If you defeat 10 goblins, 35 points. If you get to level 10 on the magic track, 16 points.
Mm-mm.
And then you still get 4 more points if you get the shield, the
Mhm.
sword, and all that. So there's like a lot of bonusy stuff.
The light, bringing down the light didn't make it more readable.
Yeah.
In addition, artifacts themselves give you points by having multiple artifacts and um, special artifacts. You then also get points for those. So finding that balance of which one to do, depending on how you're able to move, what's available on the board,
Hmm.
matters, and all of that is the delicate balance that makes this game quite awesome.
Yeah. So I think the low hanging fruit is always like I think a lot of people end up trying to complete quest cards and because it's the fun one. It's
Mhm.
like I go to temple and then I do this and I get a thing. And that's kind of works out. But at the same time, you can't ignore the benefit of fighting goblins because
Mhm.
they have a high potential for points and they scale really well. Um, Things like magic, though, you can't ignore because it starts at a -4 penalty if you haven't learned any spells of magic. So it forces everyone to be a lot more balanced in their approach in trying to do things. And in the long term, it's also important to diversify because there is a lot of times you're gonna get, it's multiple players on the same thing and all that. Um, Tricky things include like if you're trying to compete for a quest card and you're both on that temple, it will matter who gets to the end first because
Mhm.
only the person who first gets to the end will get the. Oh my gosh, you're doing circus. Only the first person who gets to the end will be able to get the quest card.
Yeah.
If I know there was a rule like if you do it at the same time, there's something else. But ultimately, it's you're always racing for these quest cards
Mhm.
to be completed. At least for the quests on your player board, those you're always free to complete them as you need to. But the quest card ones, there's always a bit of a race.
There is also that frustration that at the end of the round, when it moves from day phase to night phase, certain quest cards are eliminated from the selection.
Mm.
Sorry, from night to day phase, I mean.
Yeah,
After the night activities are done, when
yeah.
the
It
new day
it keeps
starts.
trying to move the
So there
quests.
is that possibility that you've been working on a quest and then no, it's gone.
Yeah, and then um uh what's this? And the game is only played over the course of 5 rounds, which sounds limited, but actually this game still plays for a fair amount of
Mhm.
time. So don't underestimate it. The box estimates playtime at an hour. Okay, it estimates 60 minutes, and I think that's fair. It gets a little longer with 4 players, depending on level of experience with the game.
Now, that was a lot we described for the base game.
Yeah.
The box is more than the base game. Behind the map cards, we have the Gloomfall game variant. And you'll notice everything is a darker, scarier place. The Gloomfall variant supposedly has much more challenging places. Oh, and just so you know, the locations do have certain specific powers. So while most places are about learning magic or going through temples, there are specific spots
The
that
mushroom
allow you,
grottos.
yeah,
Yeah.
that allow you certain bonuses. This one, for example, allows you to gain 2 power for each hero that is present at the castle. This one, on the other hand, allows you to advance one of your heroes one space on a temple track. So finding ways to capitalize on these locations can be key to giving yourself the edge in the game. And with the Gloomfall variant, a lot of those are different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've mostly played the light side of the game,
Mm-hmm.
also because we're typically teaching this game to people, but it doesn't make it a bad experience. And admittedly, like of all the tiny epic games we've played that involve ITEMeeples, Tiny Epic Quest still stands out as I think one of the best
Yes.
uses of ITEMeeples. The reward of completing quests for legendary items and adding them to your player, it's such a big deal even if that item is uh potentially weird. Like I know there's a lantern that's here that just there is a shovel that it just helps you with certain movement things. There's some very weird mundane items,
Mm-hmm.
but they all can potentially benefit your players, and it's not a bad thing. And then even visiting castles, all castles have an inherent ability of healing, and so it's like not bad to go to the castles also,
But
if you
then
play your cards right.
But then if you play Gloomfall, that's when you have stuff like this, wherein you can move 2 other heroes by foot. So you push them all one location, which messes up their plans.
Yes.
Or this one, move another hero in a temple that matches a quest treasure card in the quest row. So you can make sure that they're having trouble there. Here, Gain 1 power, then roll the dice and gain additional power for every power roll.
Impressive. So there's a lot going on in Tiny Epic Quest, and if you played any of the Tiny Epic games, then you see a lot of the similar like DNA, the dice rolling effects that affect all players, the victory point track, the
Mhm.
limited rounds of play. But then I don't know, it all just came together into a very different
Mhm.
game experience. And this is me being someone I did enjoy playing Tiny Epic Galaxies. It's a fun strategy game, um, and the whole dynamic of trying to like juggle visiting planets and whatnot. It works out. But Quest, I don't know. Quest just super level things up.
Mhm.
The addition of a quote unquote player board was fantastic, but it needed a board because it had more things for the meeples to do as opposed to galaxies where it's just the ships flying to different planets and then replace planets and all that.
And guess what? There's more.
Yay!
Because the base game also includes a solo mode. The solo mode is the Legend of the Chosen One, and it allows you to play while alone and try to score the victory point goal of 60 points.
And solo modes are super important in this quarantine situation that we're still under.
Mhm.
Not everybody is lucky enough to be living with a fellow board game player. So I know that there are many folks who are looking for games that they can still play on their own. So
Mhm.
Tiny Epic Quest is a game of deep strategy, small size, and comes with a solo mode, so you can still play it alone. So that's pretty awesome.
You can hold the dice. Um, we'll try to have a thumbnail photo now. We're in it's um, so
Okay.
it's just calm
Then
pose.
we leave space and like that. Okay. And... Oh,
And then we'll
okay.
have our experimental one, which is YouTube faces.
I hate YouTube faces.
Yes, but we have to test and see if it'll help raise our readership
I
or
didn't do
viewership.
that for the past thumbnail. I forgot to switch.
Ready, set,
Okay.
go.
The problem when you're making your thumbnails during a live stream, guys. We do this for you. All
What could
right.
be the? It's like shock or something, so that draws curiosity to why they're reacting that way.
I'm worried because Toby has actually been watching videos and like improving our thumbnails,
Yes.
and then so he's quoting things at me and like, okay, all right. So you want
Okay.
to, yeah. So we did two. I'm good. I'm good.
So questions then. First, strategy questions. What are the strategies you'd recommend?
You have to balance things out. Okay, you cannot just do one thing to score victory points
Mm-mm.
in this game, and it gets very tempting to like, hey, I only understand fighting goblins. Please don't. Please balance it out. At the very least, like, I know magic is like one of the trickiest to do, but try to at least get to level 3 so that you cancel out your penalties.
Mm-mm.
And maybe you can focus on quest cards uh, and what was it? And fighting goblins.
Mm-mm.
And then, in terms of completing quest cards, do not underestimate movement quests. Because naturally, the items are like the super fun ones that everybody wants to
and
do.
and they have a lingering bonus for the rest of the game, which is the item.
Yeah, but if you do movement quest cards, they're instant bonuses. So like this one gives you 3 life back up, not exceeding your maximum. This one lets you learn a spell level
Mm-mm.
just by completing the configuration. This one gives you 2 hearts and 2 energy.
And that can have that basically could remove a move you needed to do earlier to keep in the game.
So don't underestimate one type of quest or another,
Mm-mm.
and then also pay attention to the distribution of the available quests in the quest row, because it cannot be all movement or all item quests. And if any time that happens, it triggers a discard of active quests
Mm-mm.
until it gets to a better
Which can
mix.
be so painful because you might see stuff you were aiming for and they're gone.
So some people do it deliberately, and some people not don't forget this rule and then end up getting rid of things. So
Mhm.
be careful about that.
Pay attention to your personal quest track so you can see which temples to prioritize. You will always want to try to visit the front row temples first so that later when you visit the back row temples, you're progressing forward.
Yeah, so
You
from a strategy standpoint, it's good to like try to look at the available item quests, see if they match quests on your
Mhm.
first level of your board and try to hit two birds with one stone. Even if someone else gets the item, at least you move forward on your personal
Of
track.
the three basic items,
That's Mitch's question.
with the sword allowing you to hit goblins more with energy spent, the shield allowing you to prevent damage from the goblin die rolls, and the staff allowing you to conjure an extra mushroom for every power spent. There is no hard fast rule which one is the best one to go for first, because that depends on which quests you want to target 1st.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say if you aren't paying attention to that with every move you do in the first few turns, you are not maximizing your play.
Ultimately, whether or not you even use the items, each of these legendary items on your player board is 4 points. So that's 12 points waiting for you. You might as well try to do it.
Re-
Personally speaking, I will just say that the sword is the easiest to understand. The shield is helpful, but technically you can also block one damage by spending two energy. It just makes it cheaper. So it's like neither here nor there. The staff makes you feel drunk with power because you can move the mushroom token more spaces, which affects everyone.
and that can force people to tap out and rest sooner because the dice are dealing damage.
Yes.
Um, lost it.
I'm so sorry. I got excited. So that's your on the quest side. So we don't, there's it's not a question of what is the best item. It's what is most appealing. And then for available item quests though, just get them. Just just try to get them.
Mhm.
If you have more items than your meeples can carry, that's okay.
Items are still points, and getting items, even if you don't plan to use them, is denial of other people from using it. In terms of the movement rewards, there's always a temptation to try to time it to maximize it. Like a reward might be heal 2 damage, and you might be thinking, oh, so I'll try to get one more damage before I need to heal because that way I heal more and I feel that. But then someone will steal it. So don't don't try to game maximizing it unless you're sure no one can. Pay attention to the movement cards that have been used. It's very easy to like have this. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. But then later look and go, huh? Someone did buy ship already. It happens. So you
Yes.
have to pay attention.
Yeah. Um and just watch out. Like you can't go min max completing multiple quests all at once. There is a strict limit on it. There's literally the first player marker is actually a reminder that once you take a quest, once a quest has been taken, then you flip. I mean, they're just constraints about it. And and the quest row does not auto refill, right? It refills at the end. Doesn't it end at the end? I think if you look at end of turn.
I'm looking at actual questing.
Okay, okay. Which happens at
Whenever a quest card is taken for the row, immediately slide the rest to the right and replace the leftmost with the new
okay. That's okay. The quest token then is the if no quests were taken this turn, the rightmost gets discarded.
card. Mhm.
Okay. So balance game. I mean, yes. And then the way that the point track is divided, it does sort of favor quest cards and fighting goblins in terms of point distribution. So that's like a natural thing for you to do. Um no, there are no absolutes in this game. So just play it as you will. But that's how we kind of approach, I guess, for tiny epic quests.
So we're done with strategies. Let's talk comparisons.
Ooh,
How does this or where does this game stand among all the tiny epic games?
so this is
At least the ones we played.
the ones we've played, which admittedly is Tiny Epic Galaxies, Quest, Zombies, Mechs. That's the four we've played. Although we have Western and we haven't played it together. You've tested it.
I've played Western. I've played Kingdoms.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So Quest is personally a favorite of mine. I super love Quest versus all the others. And again, like I said, I think the implementation of the ITEMeeples here is delightful, and the upgrading is fun. Zombies was okay, but I felt like the item system wasn't as elegant as Quest.
Yeah.
because the way you get items in zombie is very different.
And there was that weird aspect of you feel like you're seeding the place for items you can pick up later.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
kind of odd.
yeah, yeah.
Because it was like, so you're not in that location, but you know that's what's there.
Mm-mm.
It felt odd. I mean, I think had they made it thematic, so for example, at the start of the round, everyone hears rumors and you draw the cards, and that's what it's called. So sorry, that's what you hear about what's there. Then that would have been more interesting for me.
Ooh, Mitch has a question. I think we're gonna have to research. She remembers there was a Kickstarter edition. Do we know what the difference was? I do not remember. We were late to this game. This was one of those Toby deals that he got us a copy, and we weren't quite sure about it.
I'm checking if there's any mention of a Kickstarter edition difference.
Yeah, I guess in versions.
Oh my god, keep scrolling on its own.
So we'll check that for you because we like to help.
There was a neoprene map.
So instead of the card map, there's a thing to hold everything.
There's a mushroom mini expansion, which is available for purchase. And someone mentions that is the situation for all Tiny Epic games, Western Galaxies, etc. That they usually have a smaller expansion not offered
In the retail
normally in
version.
retail.
Okay.
So Golden Mushroom is an $8 expansion.
Oh,
it
it's
has a
like
capture the flag element with cute mushroom meeples that look like they look like monsters with mushroom heads. But yeah, there's a bunch of mushroom places that you could explore there.
so we have the standard
Yeah.
edition, which is not bad in itself. And then like Tiny Epic Mechs didn't have as a diverse item system, and then I think we have bigger questions about Tiny Epic Mechs in terms of how that got implemented. So it's a very different thing. So Tiny Epic Quest is definitely our favorite ITEMeeple game.
Mhm.
How would you compare it to like Kingdom, Western, and Galaxies?
So I like Quest the most for large players. So like if it's 3-4 player games, I love Quest
Mm.
because um, it really forces you to think when everyone's moving on the board.
Yeah,
At 2 players, it's not bad, but you feel you have more control. So you feel a little bit more alone.
there's more spaces available.
Yeah, so you're not
Yeah.
necessarily bumping into each other. Um, but in terms of the Tiny Epic games, I like Galaxies.
I knew you'd. Okay, I
I
knew you'd
really
say
like
this.
Galaxies.
Galaxy okay. Galaxy was a revelation.
I think the main reason I love Galaxies is because of that damn cultural follow move, which is so hard to implement digitally.
Yes,
But then it's basically if I did something and I go, okay, I am flying my ship.
and then I'll follow.
Anyone with culture too can
Yeah, can
spend it and
spend.
go following.
And suddenly it's bonus moves for everyone.
And it's this chain of events which then can change the board because suddenly if you were earlier planning to go to this planet and then later that planet, but now they're there because you flew earlier. Ah, that game is amazing. This one is super lovely, but I can't help but always feel it's too short.
Really?
I
Okay.
feel like the 5 turns should have instead been a play till the quest cards run out.
But admittedly, in a full 4-player game, we start running out of quests.
Mm-mm.
We start running out of quests towards the end, and then we run out of goblins.
Yeah.
And goblins are finite.
Yeah.
So there are I mean, the game starts to break at 4 players because you start
Mhm.
running out of stuff. So 3 is definitely the sweet spot. 2 is like okay, but not as engaging. And then I think you've tried one round of the solo.
A few rounds.
Yeah.
I struggle. The solo game is vicious. It will beat you up.
Okay. Okay.
Not a bad thing.
Mitch has a question of comparing it to other adventure or similar themed games with a bigger box. I guess the closest like I can first think of comparing to is Mage Knight.
Hmm.
Mage Knight had a similar like card based maneuvering system. It had miniatures. It had a That one, the map is revealed over time.
Yeah.
Mage Knight is a almost an apples and oranges experience though, because it's definitely a lot more complex.
Mm.
But then ultimately, kind of juggling a victory point thing.
Mm.
In that sense, Tiny Epic Quest can feel a little nicer
Yeah.
because the challenges aren't as great. Ultimately, you're just trying to get to the end of roads. It's like finish this track. That's it. Versus Mage Knight, it was a lot of, do I have the right kind of damage to defeat the
Because
monsters?
of the deck building
Yeah.
aspect and playing your cards.
Mm-mm. What other adventure games can we compare it to? Suddenly, and this is literally us looking around at what we have. Um, we don't have a knot in this theme. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
We
Yeah.
don't have that many fantasy exploration adventure games. Clank possibly, but not quite
Yeah. Clank is still a different
because we're not
feel.
really equipping ourselves. But then again, you could say the cards
You
are
can
the
buy
way we're
items.
equipping
Yeah.
ourselves. Um, then you have games like Root, which is more specific to the conflict, so it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Um, there's no actual engine building here, but you can sort of build an engine of combos if you're lucky.
Mm-mm.
Um, yeah.
So ultimately, this is like it's still a lot of fun. I think it wins extra points because of size. And we know we have friends in our gaming circles who literally convert, don't bring the original game boxes and try to condense them into smaller pouches and
Yeah.
packets. And this game, this is it. This is as small as you can get to store it. When you put it back in the box, it is teeming with things, but it's just enough to fill. So it's pretty solid in that regard. And I appreciate that. It's funny there's a score track and I
Yeah.
had not
Right.
noticed. The box has a score track to remind everybody, which we don't always notice is there, and then ads for the Galaxy games. So, um, it's props to that. If you have more time, and then if you really like borderline RPG experience,
Mm.
then you're probably gonna go back to things like Mage Knight. So it's they're not quite the same niche, but
Yeah,
they're like on a similar scale.
we don't have Gloomhaven, so we can't compare it to that.
Mm-mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, or any of the like the Eldritchy
because
games. Yeah.
normally when it comes to games that are building maps and adventuring, we play
we
a
will
role playing
we'll
game.
play a literal role playing
Yeah.
game. Okay, so this is like as far as we go. Um, but it's a super great friend in any game night. It's a bit of a challenge to explain the rules first time around, but I think once people get through the first round of play, then they get a better feel of how things work. Yeah. So, what else? Anything else you want to highlight about Tiny Epic Quest?
I think that's it for me.
I think so too. But we appreciate everyone who's chimed in, and thanks for the questions about the game. I hope we were able to help answer them for you. Okay, yeah. So that's our. I guess that's our episode.
That's our episode for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us as we talked about Tiny Epic Quest. We had a lot of fun, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
For questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. We came up with this suggestion, but we're always open to like take other game requests, assuming we've played them and or better yet have a copy of said game. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG Suniko.
You can also check out our blog, badayprayer.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you thought about the game. Or do you feel that some of the other ITEMeeple games released by Gamelyn are better? We'd love to hear your insights. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Good night, everyone.